This is 8-Minute Climate Fix, a podcast helping you understand the energy and climate challenge in just a few minutes. I'm your host, Paul Schuster. The Iran war has entered into its fourth week and has completely destabilized global energy markets. Similar to the Ukraine war preceding it, the nature of these geopolitical conflicts lays bare the interconnected dependencies countries have on a fragile global energy value chain. Gas prices at the pump have shot past $4. Oil prices are now hovering somewhere well above $100 a barrel. Inflation will likely start to tick up, and smarter analysts than me are predicting that it's going to take months to unwind this disruption. Given that turmoil, it's natural that the call for more energy independence has escalated. And two schools of thought have emerged on what that energy independence could look like. In today's episode, I unpack these diverging views and share what true energy independence really does look like. 8 minutes. It's how long it takes the sun's rays to hit Earth, or 8 minutes longer than we should have been in this war in the first place. Let's get it on. It took less than a day after Trump attacked Iran for oil prices to jump above $100 a barrel. And they've oscillated around that number, sometimes retreating to around $90 on news that the conflict may be coming to a close, before spiking again as high as $120 on the uncertainty as to what exactly is happening in the Strait of Hormuz. As a result, gasoline prices at the pump now hover around $4 on average in the US, and that higher price for gas and diesel is likely to cascade across the rest of the economy in short order. RBC predicts that prolonged oil prices of over $100 could add 0.7% to U.S. inflation for the year, pushing the overall number close to 4%. It's in this context that a number of analysts have raised the need for the U.S. to accelerate efforts towards more energy independence. But not everyone agrees on what that looks like. One school of thought is that domestic production of gas and oil needs to ramp up, giving us a buffer of supply against these global disruptions. And on the other hand, there's the idea that what we really need to do is disconnect ourselves from reliance on fossil fuels completely by investing in more renewable and clean energy solutions. It's probably no surprise that I'm firmly in the camp of the latter. True energy independence will need to come from severing ties with the global fossil fuel industry. But let's dig into this anyways and understand why simply drilling for more oil here in the States doesn't necessarily translate to lower prices at the pump. For one thing, oil is a global market, which means that prices are set based on global supply and demand conditions, not necessarily on any one country's production volume. Yes, a significant increase in U.S. production would add more barrels to the global mix, increasing supply and putting downward pressure on costs, but the effect is fairly muted. Research models suggest that a 1% increase in production may result in a 1% decrease in long-term prices. It's the short-term volatility price shocks that are the ones that grab headlines. If a short-term shock occurs that drops supply by 1%, the corresponding increase in short-term oil prices can be an increase of 10%. So, we have to ask ourselves what we're solving for by increasing domestic production. If we are increasing production just to counteract that short-term shock, then we could flood the market with 1% of supply when a corresponding dip occurs elsewhere, offsetting the risks and theoretically keeping prices more stable. But what oil producer is going to want to only produce oil during short-term price shocks? These are highly capital-intensive drilling rigs that need to operate continuously to make money for the company. New oil doesn't come online just to fill a short-term need and then disappears. New oil just adds to the overall supply baseline, which means that increasing domestic supply doesn't really have any impact on near-term prices. What it does do is add more money into the pockets of oil-producing companies because now they're producing oil at $100 a barrel instead of $40. Those dollars don't translate through to lower gasoline prices for you and me. They go straight through to the oil company and to their stakeholders. Increasing domestic energy supply is important, but not as a hedge against short-term pricing volatility. And that's where disconnecting from the global fossil fuel industry may have more impact. Here, the role of solar, wind, electric transportation, these clean fuels dampen the impact of oil price shocks far more effectively than domestic supply increases. And the reason may be self evident, as solar power that runs on the sun isn't really correlated to those price shocks at all. The question you're probably asking yourself, though, is what about electric transportation or electric heating, where gasoline, diesel, heating oil, natural gas are all displaced with electric sources? The power grid still runs on gas and coal, and in a few places oil as well, right? So are electric utilities still exposed to these global supply issues, or are we really insulated? The good news is that the further you get away from the initial pricing shock, the more insulated you do become. Take oil, where naturally, if you're buying oil directly, you're going to pay 100% of any price increase. Gasoline follows almost immediately, and the pass-through cost is typically 80 to 90% of the increase. Natural gas prices tend to correlate with oil, with correlation around 30 to 60%, and that translates through to transportation costs, which are correlated at about 10%. Electricity, that's far enough removed from the initial oil price signal that the correlation is actually pretty low. Also working in its favor is that rates are often set on a periodic basis, so the effect of short-term price increases is a lot more muted. Total correlation is only about 1 to 5%, which means that investing in renewable energy, clean transportation, and electrification of heat does a better job in effectively insulating you from these price spikes. The more that the economy can shift towards these cleaner options, the more energy independent we can truly become as a nation. Over the coming days and weeks, as this war drags out, this argument about the best path forward will likely be amplified. On the one side, are oil producers arguing for something that seems like a very common sense solution, to simply drill for more oil. But the effect of that would simply increase their own profits and do very little to offset domestic prices. A more robust solution is the further adoption of clean energy technologies, not just from an environmental standpoint, but from one of national energy resiliency as well. I'm Paul Schuster, and this has been your 8 Minutes.